Welcome to Hobby Clubhouse with a review of the Bandai high-grade Universal Sentry 1144 Gundam G04 and Gundam G05, the pair of Gundams first seen in the M-MSV series, as in Missing MSV, which was an extension of the original MSV design series, and I think most people know them through the model kits like the Master Grade ones, or figures like the Gundam Fixed Figuration ones. And they can be a little bit mysterious because they're only featured in medias like games and comic and novels. The two Gundams are mostly the same, so we'll be having a look at them together. Getting right into things, the Gundam G04 and G05 are both P-Bandai exclusive kits. The G04 was sent out in Japan in May 2020 and was sold for 2,475 yen. The G05 was sent out very recently in March 2021 and it costs exactly the same. They both have the standard P-Bandai boxes, so there's no custom illustration for the front. Both of the boxes measure 30 by 19 by 6.5 centimeters, so they're both standard HG boxes. But oddly, the boxes do have a little bit of information printed right here on the side with this little blurb telling you that the G04 here was featured in the PlayStation 2 game, and you get the same text on the G5 box as well. Now, I'm not really sure why they felt they needed this extra little bit of background for someone who already bought this off P-Bandai, but sure, whatever. Inside the box, we get the G5 across 14 runners, with one of them for the polycaps and another one for the clear beam saber parts. I skipped over the G4 because this is the rare time when I can't show you the kit on its runners, because mine right here was already cut and separated to save some space. So here's a shot of the runner list and the instructions in its place, so feel free to pause it for anything you might want to see. And besides the plastic parts, we do get this red wire with a 1.5mm diameter that's used for the beam launcher. For stickers, we have this sheet of foil stickers for the G4 here with one for the eyes, and then one for the head camera on the front, and then this one here for the back. Then these two black ones go onto the top of the feet. Then these two with a yellow rim go onto the bottom of the shins. Then we get a yellow sticker for the V on the crotch area. Next we have a circle with the center cut out for the scope of the beam rifle. And then we get a solid yellow circle for the center of the same scope. The slender green one is unique to the G4 and this one goes onto the beam launcher. These blue ones go onto the side of the shields on both sides. And then we have these unfortunate big ones that go onto the face of the shield, two of them for the top and the bottom. For the G5, it's almost entirely the same except for replacing the green aiming sensor sticker with this red one here that goes onto the side of the Gatling gun. For clear stickers, we get these two small sheets here that are laid out exactly the same. The small texts here are for the front of the chest and you can pick whichever combination you like. And this one here goes onto the right shoulder's booster unit, and then this thoroughbred insignia goes onto the left shoulder's booster. This big white one goes on the front of the shield, and the remaining stickers are for you to put wherever you want. For the instructions, we get a black and white print and they have nothing other than the assembly instructions for both the G4 and the G5. Each kit took a little bit over 2 hours to put together, and here we have them in their normal mode, which is without the extra equipment. They have quite a few more parts than you might expect, like for the smaller divisions in color, such as the squares in the front skirts here done beautifully in two colors, and the side of the thighs here that are either in red or blue. And even these two vents on the side of the head are done with a small yellow part, which I wouldn't have been surprised if they just left it in white. But while we're here, let's talk about the head and its slightly odd shape. Now those with a sharp eye may have already noticed this, that it looks like an upside down bowl and gets wider all the way down to its sides, giving it a slightly fat shape. So if it went straight down, or even if it tapered inwards a little bit, that would improve the shape a whole lot, so that's something to consider if you're a builder. It also sits quite high up, so if you're looking at it from the front, it has a strange looking skinny neck. And I think Bandai knew this, so all the shots of the kit have the chin pointed down and viewed from a low angle. It's very sneaky, but you're not getting past me, Bandai. Now, if we don't count the weapons, the two kits have exactly one part where they're different, which is on the chest vents right here. The G4 has one exhaust port while the G5 has two. Now you'd think this calls for some different pieces, but it's really simpler than you might think. If we take off the hood on the top, the G4 actually already has these two vents even when it was released nearly a year before. The G5's red cover just shortens that lip on top and it reveals that hidden vent. Which is to say, between the two MSs, only these two parts are truly different. Now I'm not saying it's a bad thing, I mean it's pretty efficient engineering, it's just something interesting to note. So onto the accessories, we get 1.5 trigger hands for each kit. Now what do I mean by 1.5? Well, we get this right trigger finger hand, of course, and that's normal. But then we also have this extra one without the white cover. And here's something to look out for if you've ordered this kit. You see, these two hands actually aren't identical. On the inside here, you can see these two little pegs extend further out, and this is the one you're not supposed to use. I mean, sure, it's not a problem if you follow the instructions, but a lot of people will be quite used to building a modern Gundam and they might fly through the instructions, and then in the end, you might end up wondering why the hand doesn't fit the beam rifle. You have to use the right hand or else the rifle's grip won't have enough clearance. The other one is just a leftover from reusing a runner for this kit. And that's a good segue into the beam rifle itself. It's bigger and it's meatier than the Granddad's beam rifle, and it's two pieces sandwiched together as these things are. The handle on the side can swing up, and the scope can swing side to side. But sadly, it has some ugly gaps on the back here. The finger guard has a cutaway because the trigger finger doesn't have enough clearance, so I think it might be better to just cut this whole thing off altogether so it makes a little bit more sense. The mouth of the barrel is very narrow, unfortunately, so it's not going to work with the beam effect part. It's a fine beam rifle, and even if it weren't, you know this won't be used much on either kit because of the bigger guns that we're going to look at a little bit later. But before that, we have to look at the shield, and this shield comes in the Pale Rider kit, and it's been lambasted to hell and back by many fans because modern kits just don't have white slab shields like this. This is a solved problem, and it's not something I can so easily overlook. Now the sculpt is nice and the details are very sharp, but that just brings us back around to the glaring fact that this drags the whole quality of the kit down when the MS itself is so beautifully colored. I'll give it one more slap on the wrist for the mount on the arm, which sits further out than it needs to be because the block right here on the shield already sticks out quite a bit. It feels to me like the designers should have accounted for this and bring the shield closer into the arms. So this shield is serviceable at a basic level, but it doesn't pass muster. The last of the shared weapons are these beam sabers that are interestingly molded in each MS's key color, so red or blue. They work nicely with the included beam effect parts, and they fit really well into the hand, so no problems here at all. And while the normal mode is all good and well, we do get these booster upgrade and extra fuel tanks to add on. The fuel tanks are straightforward enough, and they mount directly onto these back binders on the back with long slits. The shoulders have a really nice mechanism where you flip up this panel at the top of the regular shoulders, and then you fit the booster armors right on. And that flipped up panel fits flush onto the armor as a color detail. The hook on the sides come up and fits into the armor as well. And with that, we have the upgraded form of the two MSs that were used when they were deployed in Abawaku, and yes, I know the G04 was supposedly destroyed before this upgrade. If you didn't already know it, you may not ever suspect that the shoulder parts were actually external add-ons. It's not a lot of extra parts, but both units are more often seen in this form with the white shoulders, and I imagine a lot of people will prefer this look on display. But that's not to say the normal form looks bad, quite the opposite, both forms actually look really nice. If I were to nitpick a little bit, I feel the width of the shoulders reaching outwards plus their impressive bulk can make the legs look a little bit skinny. I mean, friends don't let friends skip leg day, right? And this just adds to the many other proportional oddities of this otherwise good looking kit. Okay, you've been waiting patiently enough for this. Here's each of the unique weapons, starting with the G4's Mega Beam Launcher. Now immediately you'll notice the beautiful color separation on it, with the yellow panel on the top, and the sides that are all done in blue, along with the yellow aiming sensor, which the normal beam rifle doesn't have. It also has a side handle which can flip out from its storage position, and the cable comes out of the butt of the launcher and leads into this extra energy pack, which is what supposedly blew up and killed the pilot. The pack attaches onto the left side here on this peg, and the cable is threaded through the back like this to the other side where the beam launcher slots into this mount with a discrete little slit. It attaches pretty firmly and there isn't much fuss when you take it out. It works with the trigger finger hand, and you'll be able to pose it with a two-handed grip without too much trouble. Next we have the G05's counterpart, the giant Gatling gun. This entire weapon is taken from the Pale Rider, and like anything taken from that kit, it's a bit of a curse. You'll probably immediately notice that the back of the gun is shockingly entirely in white, And I'm here to tell you that the designers already sort of tried to make this less bad. You see the gunmetal barrels at the front? Those are actually newly made in this different color. You still have this original barrel which turns the entire gun a solid white. So we could have had this all white gun on top of an already all white shield. And maybe you might find the color acceptable, and it sort of barely is, but then we have the ammo belt. So the ammo belt comes out of this admittedly really nice looking ammo drum. And this other side goes into the side of the gun. It has these really deep grooves and it does look fantastic. But the problem here is that it's just too short. You really have to strain to bring it through the back and wrap it around the gun like they tell you to. Here I just had the belt wrap around the other way to make it easier. It'll take a lot of adjustments and you'll really wonder if you've done something wrong, and most likely you haven't, but the belt really will convince you that something here is broken. And it gets worse when you take it out and put it into the hand. Now the hands and the articulation are good enough that you can do a two-handed grip without any problem. That part is beyond excellent. But the ammo belt comes back to haunt us because it just can't reach far enough. You have to angle the gun really far back to have the belt barely reach the gun, and even then the belt's tension is enough that it's often gonna twist the gun and pop the fingers right off the holding hand. I got it into this pose in the end and it really can't move or be angled at all without it falling apart. Oh, and Bandai, you're not pulling the sleight of hand over my eyes. I see you coyly avoiding this problem so that we'd never know about it from your photos. This gun doesn't work and you knew it. This deserves to be reprimanded even stronger when this gun is a big reason why people want to buy this kit. It's terrible, and if the belt were just a centimeter or two longer, that would have fixed it, but nope, they didn't do that and they shipped it right into our hands. So what we get here is a wonderful G4 with a brand new weapon that's color accurate, and it has a beautiful red cable that works perfectly as it should, which stands in horrifying contrast to the G5 with its recycled Gatling gun from an already troubled older kit, and the weapon renders the excellent articulation meaningless because of the flawed ammo belt length. Technically, the problems here are all inherited from the Pale Rider, but I don't think that'd be an acceptable reason for anyone who'd be disappointed by this kit. Onto the articulation. Using the G4 here as an example, the head goes up a whole lot, and down a whole lot as well. It turns a full circle without any issues, and the shoulders swing out quite a bit despite the big shoulders. The shoulder itself can be adjusted on a ball joint, and the arms can rotate a full circle if you don't have the large weapons equipped. It swings outwards this much. The biceps turn a full circle. The lower arm also rotates, which is a rare trait that it inherits from the Gundam Mudrock. This allows the elbows to bend until it hits the shoulders. The hands can be adjusted on a ball joint, and they rotate a full circle. The waist doesn't bend forward at all, and neither does it go backwards. Without the big weapon, the waist turns about 40 degrees to each side. The front skirts can be cut apart and they swing up all the way. The side skirts swing up this much. And the back skirt is fixed and it doesn't move. The legs swing outwards this much. And they can rotate at the top of the thighs. They kick forwards 90 degrees. And they swing backwards a little. We get an excellent 180 degree knee bend here. The ankle armor swings a bit along one axis. Then the feet swing up this much with the double joint. And then they swing back this much. And they swing side to side this much. I may have spoiled this before, but the articulation here is very good, and other than the slightly rigid waist, all the other parts have a nice wide range of movements that are enough to do some very extreme poses. Now, ignoring the clumsy Gatling gun, we have two kits here that are very expressive, and they're gonna do all the poses you ask of them without breaking a single sweat. And with the release of the Gundam G05, we now have the entire so-called second lot RX-78 units in the HGUC line, with the pair we've already seen right here, and then the Gundam Mudrock, who is the 6th member of the RX-78 family. And then we have the one and only retail kit here, the full armor 7th Gundam. In terms of overall quality, the Mudrock is probably the best without any major weaknesses. The G4 and the G5 are sadly both worse off because of the Pale Rider parts like the shield. And the 7th Gundam is a top-class retail kit that's good even today. And if you got all 4 of these specifically because you wanted all the second lot Gundams, you deserve a special badge of Supreme Geekdom. For size comparisons, here's the lower end benchmark, the entry grade RX-78. And then, here's the upper end benchmark, the HGUC New Gundam. The pair is just as tall as the granddad, which makes sense because they're basically from the same family. And with all that said, here's a Hobby Clubhouse 3-point verdict on the Bandai high-grade Universal Century 1144 Gundam G04 and Gundam G05. Number 1. They're great kits at their core. The basic MS itself is a thing of beauty. It's wonderfully colored, it has flexible articulation, and the shoulder booster connection mechanism is beautiful. I think the designers treated the 2 MSV superstars with love and they really wanted them to be great kits. But I'm talking about the parts that they did make because... Number 2. The Pale Rider parts are terrible. I'm not gonna mince words. Every part that's brought over from the Pale Rider objectively poisons these 2 kits. Where the kits are colorful, those parts aren't. Where their kits function without fuss, those don't work like you expect them to. The worst things you're ever gonna hear about these kits from me or other reviewers, I guarantee you, are from these reused parts that are taken from the Pale Riders. Good riddance. And number 3, they're a little bit strangely proportioned. After you know about the strangely shaped head and the skinny legs, you really can't unsee them. Even when I played around with them while writing this review, the big shoulders kept bugging me as I felt they're just a little bit oversized. The problem is basically non-existent in the normal form, so it's almost entirely the fault of the extra big shoulders. So at least there's a bit of a built-in solution of not having them on. It's not something that ought to stop you from buying these if you like the kits, but it will gnaw at you ever so slightly from time to time when you look at them. So that's a review of the Gundam Unit 4 and Unit 5, a pair of MSV superstars that are actually still worth your consideration, but do weigh all the issues to see if they're the right pair of kits for you. Thank you so much for watching. Come look us up on social media with updates on upcoming videos and sneak peeks at future projects, links are in the description below. Or hang out here some more with one of these other videos. But before you go, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to be notified of new videos from Hobby Clubhouse, and I'll see you next time.